It's my great pleasure to introduce the former Marine and the fire commissioner in Franklin Square, Munson, and his fellow commissioners have just done an historic resolution and vote, and now are taking the lead to try to get some truth and integrity to an investigation to what happened on 9/11. I would like to introduce Commissioner Christopher Gioia.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you very much, David. Good afternoon, David and honored guests. My name is Christopher Gioia, and I'm a fire commissioner with the Franklin Square and Munson Fire District in the town of Franklin Square, New York, Nassau County, which is near the Queens border. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, and I've been an active volunteer firefighter with the Franklin Square and Munson Fire Department for 33 years. I am also a former EMT and an ex-chief, having served 5 years in that position. I am currently employed as a construction surveyor with Local 15 operating engineers in New York City, having worked in the heavy construction industry for the past 30 years, specializing in reinforced concrete, major foundations, and structural steel. On the morning of September 11, 2001, I was working on the Brooklyn side of the East River, just north of the Williamsburg Bridge, and I had a spectacular view of Manhattan and the Twin Towers. Having been an eyewitness to the attacks that day, and from being called to duty to assist the Fire Department of New York in the following days and weeks afterwards, 9/11 has never been far from my thoughts, having been burned forever into my psyche. That night, as I lay in bed numb with shock and disbelief, a wicked lightning and thunderstorm descended on the town of Franklin Square. It was the kind of thunder that crashed and reverberated and shook the walls of the house down to the foundation. It was a bad storm, and I remember thinking that the heavens had opened up and all that hatred and evil that was perpetrated that day was spilling out all around us, and that God was truly angry about this, and that this was an omen of things to come. Now, almost 18 years later, life is somewhat normal. The country is still at war with that faceless, nameless enemy that knows no territorial boundaries, yet manages to provoke this country into attacking sovereign nations without a formal declaration of war from Congress, or without any independently corroborated intelligence or information as to why a military intervention is justified or needed. Presently, when the Pentagon says our military must attack, who would dare question that? It's the all-encompassing and never-ending war on terror, and it stems from the attacks on 9/11, 2001. The 9/11 Commission concluded that Osama bin Laden and a group of Islamic terrorists were responsible and carried out the attacks, and that was to be the end of it. Truth be told, this is far from the end of it. The 9/11 Commission was flawed, and in the words of two of its own, the chairman and the vice chairman of the 9/11 Commission, respectively, Thomas Keane and Lee Hamilton, stated in their book, without precedent, that they were, quote, set up to fail, end quote, and was starved of funds to do a proper investigation. They also confirmed that they were denied access to the truth and misled by senior officials in the Pentagon and the Federal Aviation Authority, and that this obstruction and deception led them to contemplate slapping officials with criminal charges. The final report did not examine key evidence and neglected serious anomalies in the various accounts of what happened. The commissioners themselves admit their report was incomplete and flawed, and that many questions about the terror attacks remain unanswered. Nevertheless, the 9/11 Commission was swiftly closed down on August 21st, 2004. The failings of the official investigation have fueled too many half-baked conspiracy theories. Some of the 9/11 truth groups promote speculative hypotheses, ignore innocent explanations, cite non-expert sources, and jump to conclusions that are not proven by the known facts. They convert mere coincidence and circumstantial evidence into cast iron proof. This is no way to debunk the obfuscations and evasions of the 9/11 report. But even amid the hype, some of these 9/11 groups raise valid and important questions that were never even considered, let alone answered by the official investigation. The bottom line here is that the American public has not been told the complete truth about the events of that fateful autumn morning almost 18 years ago. What happened on 9/11 is fundamentally important in its own right, but equally important is the way the 9/11 cover-up signifies an absence of democratic, transparent, and accountable government. Establishing the truth is, in part, about restoring honesty, trust, and confidence in the American political system. That is why, on July 24th of this year, the Franklin Square and Munson Fire Department voted unanimously to adopt a legal resolution of support for the special federal grand jury investigation before the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York. The almost 3,000 innocent people who were murdered right before our eyes that day cannot speak. So it is left up to us to speak for them and demand that their voices be heard in a court of law with subpoena power and an impartial jury to consider all the evidence by placing 9/11 under a microscope and investigating everything and anything with the same veracity as the recent Mueller investigation into Russian collusion. And not before some so-called commission of political appointees who had the rules dictated to them by some of the very people who were being investigated, or who had conflicts of interests and which should have led to several members of the commission to recuse themselves. I demand to know, as should everyone, why was this important testimony limited, and in some cases not even recorded? Why was crucial evidence suppressed or not even considered and looked at, or worse yet, destroyed? That is not justice. To put 9/11 into a little perspective, I looked at the cost of government investigations and money spent. The Mueller investigation cost about $25 million. The Whitewater investigation cost about $60 to $70 million. The Space Shuttle Challenger disaster, it cost about $175 million and 7 astronauts killed. The Space Shuttle Columbia disaster cost about $400 million and 7 astronauts killed. The 9/11 Commission was initially given $3 million and 18 months to complete. with a final cost of about $15 million and a conclusion that it was a failure of imagination. Really, imagine that. The worst act of terrorism in the history of our country, which claimed almost 3,000 innocent lives and which dramatically altered the course of our nation and the world, and it had an imposed deadline of just 18 months, which was extended by 2 months, and it had an initial budget of just $3 million. Remember what the chairman and vice chairman of 9/11 Commission said. They were set up to fail and were starved of funds to do a proper investigation. Who could have imagined that, given the magnitude of such an atrocity? People lie, but the facts don't. All we want now, after 18 years, is the truth, based on the facts that can be proved in a court of law. Throughout history, it has been the inaction of those who could have acted, the indifference of those who should have known better, and the silence of the voice of justice when it mattered most that has made it possible for evil to triumph. So it would seem now, until now, we have left unmolested those who set the fire to the house and prosecuted those who sounded the alarm. But that is changing. Justice consists not in being neutral between right and wrong, but in finding out the right and upholding it wherever found against wrong. Theodore Roosevelt. Justice will not be served until those who are unaffected are as outraged as those who are. Benjamin Franklin. And for all of you who have been toiling away in the kitchen, where's Richard Gage? Toiling away in the kitchen for these past 18 years, Confucius said, the man who moves a mountain begins by carrying away small stones. Thank you.